Trading room every morning, but I also run a financial research firm. So I have a trading desk of 10, macro to micro, anything you want to cover, all assets, all time frames. Just let me know what you are looking at, long story short. And hold on one second. Also, sorry, apologies here. There we go. All right. You can also find me on X at Samantha LaDuc or LaDucTrading.com. Obviously, if you have that's my YouTube channel. Hopefully, you can hear me in the background. I've got the big truck just driving by. Apologies for that. All right. So tell me what you are interested in looking at. I am available to do chart analysis. Again, I run a financial research firm, so I really do cover chase, swing, trend time frames, all asset classes, so fixed income, bonds, oil, dollar, you name it. Or if you just want to go and take a look at sector rotation or charts of interest, let me know. Hit me up in chat and let's go. All right, so I can see a few questions here. Hey, good morning. All right, on ES, let's go to a different chart setup then for that. All right, this is one of the things that I do. I'm having issues here. Why isn't this opening up? Uh-oh, something just froze. All right, can you, sorry, I just had something freeze, so hopefully you can hear me again. All right, this is something I go over actually every day with clients, which is a little bit of a heat map. You can see dollar is moving up right now on war vibes. Market is pretty choppy. I've got this on a 2-hour chart time frame. These are the cues. This is SPY. This is gold coming back a little bit with that dollar surge, but silver has been extremely bid. You need that in making, missiles and other GPUs and other things. Yields have been kind of in a Goldilocks zone, not getting in the way. They're not rising too much or falling too fast. The big news has been, of course, oil. And then in particular, oil. This was something I sent to clients, lucky or good. When it was about $62, I sized up an inverse head and shoulders and said I would expect this to head into 70. This was before war vibes, but I literally wrote either as oil as the inflation hedge or war vibes. And literally then last Thursday, you know what happened. Israel attacked Iran and this spiked higher. I had luckily updated my price target here and I said, okay, 73 is actually my price target for crude with an overshoot to 75.65. And we had a very big overreaction, but immediate tap back down. And now we're still digesting. I wouldn't short crude here. But for anyone who regularly follows since April of last year, when it was in the 85 handle, I said I expect, it was literally right here. And by the way, it was the same time there was an Israeli attack on the Iranian embassy in Syria. And I said at 85 that this was a short. In fact, I could see it falling in the $60 to $40 handle by the end of 2025. Fast forward, we did fall all the way down so far into the 56 handle. And I believe that after this ramp is done, which could take all summer long, this is, this is a durable theme here that we've got going on in the Middle East. So I would not short oil, but it will be a fabulous short when we get de-escalation because there's a lot of risk premium that's getting bid up into the price of oil. And then I expect it to come right back down. As soon as we get back below this 65 big support level, I think we'll head back down into that $60 to $40 range. And that's on a macro thesis of falling global oil demand. And that's still in play. But first, we have to work through this rotation. Also, nat gas is pushing higher. This is also kind of a risk-off trade. Crack spread has been moving beautifully higher, which is a nice Valaro trade higher. It went from 100 to 130. It's now pushing 145, 150. So I really like the refiners right now, in addition to Marathon over the weekend, in addition to the Iran-Israel attacks going on, and Strait of Hormuz. You also had Marathon, major refinery in the U.S., have a fire. So this has helped the crack ETF, also the spread and the moving, pushing higher of the oil commodities for sure, and the refiners. The dollar is bouncing. We actually this morning sized up a 27 dollar at the call at the money. UUP calls were coming in of big size, and as you can see, the dollar is also moving higher on this kind of war vibe, but that's not normally the main reason. I think the 400 week is supporting it as well as a monthly support line. So I think this is just a trade. I actually expect oil to reverse lower end of year. I expect the dollar to reverse lower and take out that kind of 98, 97 and a half Dixie and push lower into end of year. So I'm still of that mindset. When you asked about ES, let's go back to that chart that I was trying to get to and I forgot. All right, so up here is the E-minis. Hopefully you can see this. This is a liquidity tell that I have. I've been tactically bullish, and actually since this went above zero very strongly on April 23rd, but specifically since Trump came in on April 9th with policy intervention. But that was just the shake and bake, major shake and bake. We needed follow through. Anyway, this liquidity indicator got back above the zero mark. And so my price target has been, since it has to get and stay above the zero, which it has done, it has been 61.27. It has not come in yet. We hit SPX 60.44. I'll show you that. And once we hit that 60.44, actually last Wednesday, I said, careful, we could get some shake and bake here because it's a monthly pivot. And sure enough, this was the Wednesday on the daily. This happens to be a weekly, that happens to be the hourly. And you can see how it started to come down into Friday. Everyone was very worried over the weekend, but never ever doubt the futures monkeys in keeping them bid, and also the market pricing in potential truce or victory, however it sees it. But anyway, this is where we're at right now. We haven't fallen apart. VIX has not gotten back above what I called back last week, which was 22. We actually hit 22. So the next time we really get a durable follow through in selling in the market is when VIX can get back above 22. So if you have a ticker that you're showing, you need to show me a little bit more of like time frame, because everyone has a different definition. So for me, I look at the intraday chart. Here's the hourly, right? So when VIX is above 1929, the market is in trouble. Once it comes back down below 1929, it's very supportive of the market. So I'm looking at these kind of different levels, but also time frames. And then, of course, I will zoom out and look at the daily, of course. And we're getting a little, we're getting a little excited up here, but it wouldn't surprise me if VIX in kind of this left shoulder making a head. This was last week into Friday. That was Monday. Here's Tuesday. If it came back down on expectations of truce or what have you, and then we'll see what happens. But if we form a right shoulder and move higher, it wouldn't at all surprise me, because I have been calling for VIX to fall into from that April liquidity tell that I just showed you. I on April 22nd said I expect VIX to fall into the May options expiration and then the June options expiration, which is this Friday. Then it's done. Then I think VIX will base and move higher July and into August. So I'm waiting, anticipating for this to come back down for the next few, like next week I expect to be weak. And then I expect this to kind of come back down. It may not happen. We might just have really big bad troubles abroad. Ships are obviously en route, and we're not talking about a little bit. We're talking about big carrier groups. So this obviously macro headlines are going to trump anything my technical analysis says. But I'm just saying that I have had a higher volatility call starting in July into August, and this is only pulling it forward potentially, unless we do get truce de-escalation or even a regime change, in which case it's very market bullish. Okay, Tesla. Susie, what's your time frame for Tesla? Because that matters, right? So are you chasing it? like the next day or two or three? Or are you looking at a swing position that's going to last a few weeks? Or are you looking for something that's more durable? For example, you know, bullish or bearish on, I don't know, next quarter into the end of the year. So that's what I mean by give me something here on, sorry about that. I have not looked at American public education ever. Like, I'll tell you why. It doesn't have an options market that's very robust. Yeah, we definitely have selling under the surface today. I'm just looking at my indicators real quick. All right, so we do not have um your there it is. Okay, so we don't have an options market of any size here, right? So I will tell you, I've never looked at this one before. You can tell there are no lines on the chart. I will say, besides the fact that it's very thin, 131,000 in volume today is something I wouldn't touch personally, too thin. But you might know something about this, right? That's perfectly fine. Like I had a big trade thesis in ASTS this past February. Now it's crazy, but the point is back then it wasn't. Maybe something will come into this issue. I'm not sure, but I will tell you the 400 week is very productive. So if it can get and stay above the 400 week, which is this purple line, I'm talking a trend basis, that it's very, very productive. So even though it's thin, it's had some fabulous bullish engulfing candles. It's been here for months and months and months. It's trying to head and stay above the 10 week. But again, I don't know what your time frame is. You got to let me know. If anything, chase, swing, or trend time frame will really help me help you. All right. Tesla for 2 weeks. Thank you. That makes more sense. So we're above this really key level, which is this 304. I really liked this was actually at the time we had this is a 200 underneath. You probably can't see it very well, but the green trend line underneath is 200. So I liked this. We actually have come back down on the big spat between Musk and Trump, but it was a 25% pullback. It just happened to be a lucky short. And I do mean lucky because I never expected that. But because it looked like a left shoulder, head, and right shoulder, I said as long as it stays below 355, and then it dumped. And then it hit right over here, 282 support, and went back up and filled that gap. But all it's doing right now is just slogging about through the 331. And right now it looks more weak than strong, but it hasn't done anything on the weekly time frame to really muck it up. So in other words, how do I put this so it's not so messy? This was a big bearish engulfing, and then we had a reversal, which stabilized things. But I still have 304 on a weekly time frame, 304 on a daily. It has to stay above. Otherwise, we're going to push lower into 271. So if you can stay here and the market gets supported because of some good macro news, great. Otherwise, it looks like what I call a theta decay killer of sideways. All right, Bitcoin. Let me go over here. It's kind of better. So right now, nothing's really going on um, with Tesla, even though I know they have a robotaxi event on the, what is it, 22nd, which is next week. And the growth rotation, in other words, this is my growth value ratio, it is still percolating higher, even with the backdrop that we have right now of big risk. It is one of those situations where my indicators have not turned lower. There is some selling underneath the surface today. There is a little bit more volatility equal to what we had end of last week, but we do not have any big momentum or dumpage underneath the surface yet. So for right now, Tesla could delight, but I'm not seeing that right now in the chart. Bitcoin is also doing its sideways shimmy. So here's Bitcoin up to the prior highs of 112. It made a lower high of 110. It's kind of digesting this big, thick red line, which is the 50-day. It's not really doing anything on price, but underneath the surface, it is losing momentum. And then I like to look at Ethereum just to see what it's doing. And it's also doing a whole bunch of nothing, which is to say it had a huge wedge. And both of these trade as momentum plays or liquidity plays, especially with NASDAQ marching higher. So right now, Ethereum had dumped and it has got to clear basically 3750, and it will be very bullish, but it has to, I mean, it has to do something miraculous to get above and move higher. Otherwise, no. So it doesn't have any energy at all. So as far as I'm concerned, Bitcoin isn't really doing anything. The market is has moved into resistance, that 6044 that I said in SPX. If we can get and stay above 6100 SPX or 6127 in my E-mini, then we can have the potential for a melt up and Bitcoin will go along for the ride. AMD has been, oh, love. So AMD had a whole bunch of similarities with some other oversold semis of late. A very, very big thing that I look for in a company like AMD or Novartis or some others. I'm sorry, Novo, here, this. I can't pronounce it. No, no, no. Novo Nordisk. See how it came down to the 400 week? A ton of companies have recently come down into this 400 week and they have been fabulous bounce contenders. And that means, oh my goodness, across the board. Also Micron, look at that. So I'm talking on a trend basis because that's what I always do. I look big picture and then I zoom into the near term. So near term is not as interesting to me, if truth be told, except when it comes to volatility, because then I want to see volatility works from the inside out. But anyway, AMD had some gorgeous characteristics. A protracted downtrend into the 400 week, and then it had May 12th, a gap up. All the market looks like this, but especially semis. Here's that trend line, and it digested beautifully, right? This is a monthly pivot, so this is going to have some trouble to kind of get and stay above. But as long as it stays above this 120 area, it's very nice. And there are a whole bunch that look like this. So if the market wants to cooperate, in other words, move higher, then AMD is going to need to stay the distance, right? In other words, stay in this fight and then get and stay above this 130, 171. Let's call it 132. It is making up for some of NVIDIA's kind of languishing at this head and shoulders mark. So if we start to lose NVIDIA, then obviously semis are in big trouble because that's the golden child. But AMD is trying to make up some time, just like Dell, right? Look at this gorgeous. Dell has also did a great job of coming back in, digesting, wants to push higher. You can see it. So many NXPI, even ones that you're not familiar, maybe as familiar with, did the same exact thing. Here's your 400 week, and it's pushing into trend line. So I've got lots that look like this, and they're still in play, unless, of course, the market is going to really pick up speed to the downside. And I don't expect that until end of pushing more in the end of July and August timeframe. So I think we still have a little bit more time, but it's not going to be so easy with the backdrop. I also have SMH. Martha, we can see you. I don't know if you care. I've got SMH also pushing into 272.46, and then I think we're done. So in this semi rotation, I think that will be it. So this is a hourly gap fill that's been here for a while. So this is one of my price targets in pushing once we get and stay above, and we really did have a massive gap up on May 12th, where semis literally went above the 200 day, and they have been staying very nicely despite all the drama that's going on in the background, which is you got to still protect your portfolios, but as it relates to positioning, I am still expecting semis to move up into this 272.46. Long story short. As far as the dollar, bigger picture, I actually posted this for clients recently. Let me show you. And that is, so for example, I do some intermarket analysis and NYSE has moved into resistance. So this is where I expected some chop. But the dollar in particular, excuse me, I know it's going to make your eyes crazy, but let me get to it. It's down here. Here we go. All right, so we're coming into a trend line support, right, in that kind of 97.5 area, 98. This was obviously taken from last week, and we've had a little bit of a bounce this morning, but I still see a potential for this bounce to get unwound and the dollar to come back down. So bounce kind of then trounce. And the same thing for yields. I think yields right now are a little soft, but I expect them to move higher into end of the year. Oil right now is quite strong, but I expect that to follow this trajectory. Let me get this chart if I can find it. There we go. This is the bounce that we're getting right now in crude. This is on a monthly pushing into 80, at which point I expect that to reverse lower. So these are all kind of the macro trend trades as far as the background. But you were asking about dollar and oil and a little bit of the resistance that I see above in SPY and also in Apple and also in the E-minis. So we've got, oops, there we go. Apple's having a tough time holding 200. So it's the weakest of the FANG stocks is in fact Apple. And the strongest of the FANG stocks is no question Microsoft. So I would say follow Microsoft. We start to see any selling in Microsoft, then the Qs are in trouble. Meta is also very hard to short for anything more than a trade, and it's coming up into a 711, which happens to be a resistance area. It hasn't tagged it perfectly yet. And then Palantir is also another one that's extremely hard to short, even if its valuations are whacked. EADSY. Well, Airbus. I'm more interested in Boeing. So this is an ADR. It's a little bit tougher to for me to get excited about because I'm an options on equities trader and it has no options because it's an ADR for France. So you have a lot of chop in this name, but obviously it's fine. I mean, as far as a trend is concerned, it's doing fine. As it relates to Boeing, its competitor, I think it actually is the first time in a really, really long time I have been excited about Boeing. It came down and did this fabulous monthly tag for a trade a few months ago, and then it came and revisited, took it out on the big trade drama, right, in April. Once it returned and got back inside, I've had this one on my radar because it's not only performing really well at monthly pivot levels, it came right back down to the 400 week, but you can see above, once it gets above 215, it's going to move up to 245 and then 260. So I actually prefer Boeing better for two reasons. One, the chart is easier to read, at least for me. And the second reason is massive, deep, thick, liquidity pool. For sure, definitely my favorite. Okay, I've got gold, GDX, and TLT. Same thing. I need to know some time frames on that. I am a big bond bear. So this is just a bounce. And in fact, I recommended a bull risk reversal here that's up 10 times. It is for June 30th. So, sorry, July, end of July. And basically it is only a bounce. I really expect this to roll back over. And what I'm looking for, since you're asking, I'll tell you, is more of a fixed income. Ooh, we got weakness under the surface. More weakness and more selling. So this is the 10-year, 2-year yield curve. This is flattening, and it's going to come down into about 4.26. Okay. Then this is where I expect it to start to get supported and move higher into a bear steepener. Bonds, specifically 10-year, specifically the TLT, are not going to be safe for a durable trend reversal long. And this is, I wrote about this in December. They're not going to be a durable trend long until this 10 and 2-year yield curve hits 90. We're only halfway there. So I'm definitely more bullish yields than the average bear. And then, of course, gold. It's gorgeous. Gold and silver are huge, huge positions for clients of mine. I do mean very, very, very large. Let me just show you a chart, and then I know I got to let Martha come in because we're approaching. Where the heck is it? Let me find it. Come on, Samantha. Hold on. It's my gold silver ratio, and it's not here. Bummer. All right. Well, it is here. All right, this is on a monthly chart. I'm very bullish gold and silver and miners. So this is a longer duration, longer duration. I've got monthly up here, right? Now, this is something you also might not know about, but gold overtook euro as a global reserve asset in 2024. So we're talking dollars, which are huge. They're 58% of currency. And then you've got gold and then you've got euro. It's a ginormous, important asset now, especially now with fiscal spending, of course, war vibes as well. But basically, countries and part of this slow de-dollarization are settling trade in gold, not dollars as much. It's slowing, and they're not settling. They're settling outside of the petrodollar system. So oil is going to have less of an impact when it spikes higher than in prior spikes. So keep that in mind as well. But gold is definitely sensitive, and I would say gold and silver are still hot fire flames. And I have some amazing contributors that focus on the precious metals space. Yes, we've got portfolios as for chase swing trend, income, and futures. You also asked about GDX. I like it. I like it. There's nothing wrong with it. There is basically preferred miners over, there are tons here, but let's just say GDX right here came out last March when gold spiked higher, and then April, silver had a 10% up week. Silver was called perfectly by our classical economist, Jeffrey Fouvray. We also have phenomenal clients. I've been trading extensively in commodities and specifically precious metals. So they have been on this early and often. So they've been fabulous contributors, honestly. So GDX is doing fine as a trend trade. And then there are specific ones inside it that are my three favorite from last year, which is Wheaton's. I'm thinking like Wheaties, AGI and AEM. A lot of people like Franco-Nevada as a royalty company. And then most recently, client Jose said, be careful, not be careful. He said, silver's about to break out and AG will be a fast mover. It has a lot of torque. That was his word. And man, did it. It went up 25% in 1 week. So that's the kind of stuff that I size up in the live trading room. And then post themes right now in GDX, a very, very strong theme is Newmont. Newmont is actually the largest miner. You probably already know that, but the reason why I'm excited about this is again kind of a trend line on a weekly. This is an earnings report that was horrific, and investors sold first and asked questions later. And then they had a nice recovery, and it has been digesting beautifully. All it needs to do is clear this 58.72, even. By the way, cash flow positive. They're amazing relative to the number of employees. And then, of course, you have all the macro stimulus behind it. The one big problem that's going to come up this quarter is the fact that energy costs were falling for these miners. It's like 40% of their operating expense. Now oil is rising. So there will likely be some digestion in the miners. Just keep that in mind, depending on your time frame. So I think I answered everyone. Apple's going nowhere fast, and it's the weakest of the bunch. Microsoft is most important for sure. The trend long of gold, silver, and miners are still solid. Tesla needs to move for a reason again, and it has none. Bitcoin is also sluggish. Dollar's having a short-term bounce. Oil's having a very strong bounce, and then I think we're going to see volatility, which will reprice, everything, but not until likely July, August. It bases and then moves higher, which is not just a seasonality call. It's actually something I size up through my indicators, and this is what I've been talking about for a few weeks now. So I am. Hopefully it helped. I went over as much as I possibly could in the 30 minutes. And I'm going to go see what all that's about. And then I think you've got another contributor coming in. But yeah, we're definitely having selling underneath the surface today. So it should be very eventful into the end of the week. All right. Did that got everything?